Just when you think there can't be any more good, great, bullish news in the market, boom, Nvidia selling chips to China. What a turnaround. Stock blasting off the new all-time highs. China data looking good. Baba popping. China stocks doing well. Bank earnings, well, we'll see what happens. They're being sold off on some decent earnings. Value, just kick those value stocks out of your portfolio. Christian Fromhertz joined us 8:35. He's going to be our guest. But before that, CPI. Will CPI finally shake up this market? Like get some volatility, get that VIX over 20. Something badly needed here on pre-market prep. Let's get things started.
The volatility right now is really incredible.
Wow, look at that consolidation on the upper right chart.
You know what we've seen this earnings season? Some of these expected moves get even more violent. This is why I have switched my strategy 10 years ago. And if you're chasing, you're in trouble.
Okay, good morning, traders and investors. We get the charts up here, and we will get things going. S&Ps, new all-time high. It was 35.50. Now it's 41.75. That'll be a bogey on the upside. Buck flat, 97.77. TLT flat. We'll see what happens at 8:30. USO flat, 75.65. GLD up a $1.64, 309.65. Trying to get back to that all-time high. SLV under 35, steady 34.76. Bitcoin giving a little back from yesterday's gains. It's down just over 3K in the futures at 117,155. We're going to get things started here. We're going to bring Dennis on, and Dennis is tired of the markets going up every single day. Can the CPI shake us up?
It'll knock value stocks down, but they will buy any AI stock on dips. I mean, that's the market we're in here. The trend is your friend. Value, I expect, obviously 8:30 is going to change things, but I would expect some rotation out of value today. When you've got Nvidia and AMD, and we can get to that news here in a second, up as much as they are, and the S&P is just up a bit, there's going to be some rotation. I mean, the S&Ps, it's just off Nvidia, and the chips is going to be worth more than 0.35%. So you can be pretty much guaranteed if we stay where we are, which isn't, a guarantee because we got CPI coming, that is not going to be green across the board. There's going to be some rotation, and it looks like clearly the winners today are those Nvidia and AMD shareholders there. So give us the news here, Mr. Elconin.
The news is simple. Well, it was kind of dissected here. Let me put Nvidia up here. Let me get the pre-market action. And it was kind of sneaky because it was after 8 o'clock, and you get the news that that Jensen Huang is going to attend a China Supply Expo in Beijing on Wednesday. So, people are thinking, woo, that shoots the S&Ps up, and then they kind of like digest the information, and then the news comes out. They're going to resume H-20 shipments to China as Jensen Huang meets with Trump. Beijing officials fully compliant. Whoa, what a turnaround here. What a turnaround. Getting tough. If this is getting tough with China, Dennis, then I need to read a new book.
The tough trade is over. I mean, we've had the art of all the toughness is gone at this point in time. They're working deals. They're being nice. He'll be tough and then nice. He always ends up being nice. So, I mean, that's where we're at. Nvidia can now sell chips to China. The whole world is happy here again. AI trade is hot. AMD flying on this as well. I mean, these chips just across the board. So the AI trade, which was very weak yesterday morning. I mean, not a lot of people had this one because you had relative weakness in the chips yesterday. It was a source of weakness. We had Nvidia and AMD and Applied Materials and Micron. Micron had a horrible day yesterday. Oracle trading down because Oracle trades with the chips now too. But that is not the case today. Most of these stocks getting all their losses back from yesterday. In the case of AMD and Nvidia, building back to 52-week highs, all-time highs for Nvidia. So it's impressive. I mean, this is just where the market we're in. The strong continue to get stronger. Where is the weakness going to come? When are the stocks going to come in? Well, we'll see what happens with the CPI. But like I said, I'm always an Arab guy. When you're looking at, the S&P trading up 0.3%, you're looking at Nvidia trading 4.6%, AMD 4.6%. You're like, not everything's going to be green. Microsoft has turned red here already. Apple is hanging on, but we'll see what the CPI does. Maybe the CPI can, bring the stocks up, because bank earnings are not helping the value trade here either. So it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a lot of rotation.
Do you think it's going to be Trump Taco Tuesday at Taco Bell?
Probably.
I mean, what a reversal here with China. We'll just look at Nvidia blasting off the new all-time highs. I'll just give you the pre-market high because that's really the only thing I can give you. That's 172.76. Took a couple pokes up there. That's only $1.25 away. So, and not much of a gap fill. AMD sleepy for a little bit. They're loving the news on this one. That exploded. It hit over 154 twice, 154.58. See, you may get a little bit of a fade in this, but that's nothing you can count on. Broadcom trading up 370. That's bumping up. Ooh, that's at least that is in an area where you can identify potential. That's with a capital P, potential resistance at the 280 area. Micron, I mean, there was a little note out on it yesterday, but that's not getting the hops like the other one that is approaching yesterday's. Let's keep an eye. Micron a little bit more tame here. That is at 120, 120.44. If there's any other chip stocks you want me to take a look at, we could do that, but we gotta go to China. Do we want to go to China?
Well, they're having huge reps. I mean, you could talk this headline here for the entire show. So AMD obviously ripping higher here. I bought more a couple days ago, so I'm happy about that. China, I actually had this written down to start looking at Alibaba and Baidu here again, because they've just come down so far. But now overnight you get this big pop here, and obviously this is huge. So one thing to consider though on the China stocks, unlike AMD and Nvidia, which are near 52-week highs, these stocks got a lot of overhead supply. It's not going to be just easy sailing like 114, 130, 150, because there's just so many people who have been trying to play this value trade, and the value trade hasn't worked. And I mean, these China stocks are your ultimate value stocks. Last time I looked, Alibaba was trading 10 times earnings. Baidu was 8 times earnings. Those are not the stocks this market likes. So they get these pops, seem to get met with more sellers. I don't know when the value trade comes back into favor, but it doesn't look like it's going to be today.
Yeah, I think they had a bunch of data out overnight, and I'm looking at the data. It looks okay. I mean, industrial production was a little bit better. Gross domestic product was a little bit better. Unemployment is steady at 5%. So you get a comment, but I think the bigger, catalyst or, sub catalyst with this is, the Nvidia. I mean, in the news that, Trump with his stance with China. So,
well, it's all the catalyst. It's not the bigger. It's the catalyst here is off of this, because obviously these companies need chips. They need Nvidia chips to do what they want to do. So they do have obviously their own as well. But I mean, we know Nvidia, chips not being sold over there is an issue for all these Chinese tech companies. So now all of a sudden, green light go. So and that's the question: does this kickstart the rally and start to make people start thinking about China again? I mean, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 1,000 times, and I'm not even going to bother looking there anymore. And I mean, this has been the Baba and Baidu and the China stocks rallies. These stocks have underperformed for a decade. So is this their time finally? Like, are we going to call it today if this is their time? I think probably the rip gets sold again, because this is just a trendy market, and the trend in China stocks has been to sell the rip.
It's backed off a little bit. Let's just take a look at Baba. Baba got to 115.57. 50-day, is 117.45. So that's a big pop. That's a big gap up. That's well over the average daily range for the stock. Let's take a look at Baidu. That's up 383, still under the 100 mark. That is actually trading at the highs of the session. JD.com getting a small lift on this one. This has been just new low of the move yesterday, taking out the last 2 monthly lows. So that's a look. Let's just take a look at the FXI. Let's go broad here. That's up 39 cents in this this move. Not it's still off its 2025 high. So we'll see if you get the follow through on this, or if it's a fade, as it's been so prevalent in these stocks. So S&P, they do an ad, but it's not App Lovin' or Hood. It's Trade Desk. That one?
Yeah, and Trade Desk had been rumored here too, so it's not surprising, but it is kind of surprising. I keep thinking Hood's going to be next. So I think the S&Ps don't like being told what to do too, and the markets, they know they want Hood. And eventually Hood will get added. But again, gets, rejected here. We obviously had ANSS going out, I believe it was, and Trade Desk going in. So that's where we're at here. Trade Desk up huge. Now, let's look at Datadog. So DDOG got added 6 days ago. Had a huge pop. Stayed up there for a day. Then started leaking it away. So typically, these are not rips to buy. They are rips to sell. When the stock pops 13% because it's going in an index, it's usually more of a selling opportunity than a buying opportunity. So I will say, you don't want to be early, because Datadog kept going the next day, open near the low and then ran another $5. Yep. But I would say, like, towards the end of the day here, towards tomorrow, there may be a short opportunity here, and I might be taking it as well. But you don't want to be early on this trade. So you got to let, like, those indexers come in. You got to let the people who are all excited about getting in there come in, and then pull the rug from under those people. So waiting a day isn't bad, but I mean, this is a huge move. 13% volume's incredible. But again, these rallies are often rallies to sell as opposed to, rallies to buy. And with the opposite being said, the dips last night, and App Lovin' especially, were pretty incredible. I did buy the dip. I'm long App Lovin' from the dip last night. It got down to 342. And we saw this already happen too on Datadog. So we have precedents here too, where those stocks get hit because they didn't get added, and then the next day they just buy them back anyways. So that's what I did this last night. They've already started buying it back. Robinhood was down under 98 last night, has gotten most of those losses back. App Lovin' has gotten 2/3 of the losses back as well. So I'm pretty happy about that.
And this will take place on Friday. But I think the price action here, even if you use that Friday closing price, well, it sold off before. So you got it on Monday. You get the follow through on Tuesday. We'll keep an eye on it. I will tell you, from a technical standpoint, this stock is in absolutely no man's land here. We're trading at $85. Okay, if you can come up with a more confusing chart, you let me know. You let me know out there. Okay? I guess, I don't know, they're worried about their problems. This was a problem thing. This was earnings, something government related. I think this was probably, I don't know, maybe an earnings gap up or whatever. But this, there's a level. I can't give you a level. 85.18 gets you into the gap. And then if you're looking for a gap fill, well, you got to wait for 118. So look for the follow through. I think I like what Dennis is saying here is that, hey, it's good news. It's great news. The indexes are out there buying it, but you do have precedents with Datadog here, right? If you were selling into that straight, you had a pretty good trade there. But let's see how that develops. It's something that we'll keep an eye on over the next day or two. App Lovin', I mean, this stock did get hit, bought the dip, works again. Boom. Should go green. Let's see. That would be a thing for it to go green. It needs to establish something over the 50-day, I think, to really get the Jets going. It was making an attempt yesterday, but failed. So we'll be keeping an eye on that 356 area. And the reason I mentioned this is, like, when Tesla was all that ups and downs and all arounds and everything, with the news and the non-news, I said, hey, I'm going to just keep an eye on the 50-day and see if it can establish a bid there. Right now, it comes in at 320.77. You poked above it yesterday. So Get up there, establish support, another leg higher for Tesla. And then who else is getting Hood? Hood is hardly down. They got hit and then
Down
bounced
$2
back.
last night, and that dip quickly scooped up. They just buy the dip in Hood.
Boom.
There may be no stock more loved than Hood right now. I mean, you could say, oh, Palantir and all these other ones. You want to know, start doing the math here. $40 to 100. There's not a lot of stocks the size of the market cap of Hood that are up 150% in the last 2.5 months. This is one of the most loved stocks out there.
Just it's hanging up here too. Maybe you get another consolidation period like you did at that $90 level, and maybe establish that at 100 for another leg higher. Yep, Hood.
We need a catalyst to like knock these stocks off their keister, and it's just not. I've been saying this in the STN room. That's why I'm just playing all the bullish strategies, the mind-numbing, just buy everything that's strong strategy. And I bought more AMD. I'm like, because you can just see that there's just no real like clouds on the horizon. And again, the market doesn't anticipate anything. So we can clearly see when there's clouds on the horizon. I just don't see any right now. So, I mean, there's going to be, a rug pull here eventually. People are saying, well, it's the August deadline. I mean, that's a soft deadline. The talk of trade is like full running rampant. I don't think it's tariffs to knock us down here either. I don't think it's tough talk. Because when the market when Trump talks tough, the markets fall for like half a day, and then they buy it right back anyway. So they're done with the Trump talk of being tough here, and we're going to tariff the world. They don't worry about that at all. So I mean, we've just got to keep playing what is working. You can be bearish, you can be like, oh, I like bear markets. You can do all that stuff. Doesn't matter. We are in a bull market here, and the bulls are in complete control. They're in so much control right now that I'm not even sure like what's gonna I can't see how they lose control. Usually there's always clouds. Climb a wall of worry. What are the worries right now? We climbed the wall of worry, and the tariffs. But there's cash on the sidelines. I mean, reading Dan Niles' post yesterday, Brentster, you could bring it up here again for us if you want, but we did this in the STN room. And I mean, nobody's more in sync with the markets than Dan Niles. Like, I love Dan Niles, and we need to get him on the show sometime. I'm the biggest Dan Niles fan because most of these talking heads on CNBC, most of these talking heads on social media absolutely don't know what they're talking about. Dan Niles is not that person. He totally knows what he's talking about. And what he was saying yesterday in his tweet was just awesome. Brentster, do you have in the background? I know I threw you under the bus on this, but if you can go bring it up here and maybe show it, we're going to try to get that tweet up there right now. The Brentster, that's why we got to pay him the big bucks, because he's quick at doing this stuff. So here's the Dan Niles tweet yesterday. I remain bullish currently, and today the S&P remains up slightly intraday and near 52-week highs despite tariff threats on a slew of nations over the weekend. This is totally true. The S&Ps hardly went down. We had all these tariff threats. I just get going to some highlights here. I pay attention to the reaction to the data more so than the actual data for my near-term views, while the actual data shapes my long-term views. So he pays attention to the reaction of the data. Exactly. I mean, when they're rallying on bad news, when they're rallying off tariff concerns, that's telling you this market just wants to go higher. The reaction of the data is always more important. The reaction to the earnings is more important. People will call me and say, JP Morgan had great earnings. Why is it down? It's the reaction that matters more than anything, the bar. Dan Niles, this tweet should just be framed. Everything he talks about in here is just awesome. This reaction today tells me there's a probability still more upside. Going down here a little bit more, Brentster, because there was some other good ones that we were highlighting last night. Just some sayings that are almost timeless here. Due to pull. Okay, so here's what he talks about too. Longer term, so he talks short term, he's a bit bullish, which I am too. Longer term, I continue to believe there could be a 10 to 20% drops in the market later this year as we approach Thanksgiving. I like his timeline on that too, because I thought we could get the July rug pull. I was saying, back in May and June, and then I pulled that off because we're not seeing, this reaction. The reaction to Trump tariffs is just positive now. So that's not going to knock us down either. What could knock us down is if earnings actually start to decline because of tariffs later this year. But we're talking like third quarter stuff, and we don't get that till October. So that's why I like his timeline here too. But he's also talking about pull forward, that there was some pull forward, like people were trying to get ahead of tariffs. So we are going to see this earnings season probably pretty good as companies have bought stuff ahead of tariffs. So you got to think about that too. So lots of reasons to think. that we're probably going to be okay for a while here. So anyways, Dan Niles, give you a shout out. Great tweet. Get you on the show here sometime if you
Yeah,
want to come on.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah, give him a reach.
Does he follow you on Twitter or not?
No, Dan Niles too big for me. But anyways, like, and he's not huge, but I mean, there's just certain people, like there's lots of people that have bigger following than him, but he's always spot on. Like he's the reason, I got an Nvidia 2 years ago. He just seems to be all over everything. Just a fantastic market timer. So I'm giving him a huge shout out here today. Give him a follow. Dan Niles.
Okay.
Dan Niles promotional session right there for you.
That's
okay. So just continuing on. No, so now we just laid the landscape. That I agree with him. I don't see any near-term like catalyst knocks down it. Maybe CPI is going to be hot today. Maybe that could change things. So we got 10 minutes. We'll see what the CPI does. But if it's like a tick hot, is the market going to sell off on it? Probably not. I mean, interest rates, TLT sitting down here into the lows. There's still lots of things, like I guess, to worry about here, but they don't care about any of these things. So until they start caring about the CPI, until they start caring about the TLT sitting near 52-week lows, there's no reason to get off the bull train. They start caring, you're gonna have a couple hours to figure about it. But I'm a short-term trader, so I can flip in a hurry.
Well, I mean, they'll probably, the pros and the pros of the number, right? If it's soft number, I mean, like I just don't understand why there's such an outcry for lower rates right now. I mean, aren't you supposed to save that for like, when if we're in a recession, someone let me know. Maybe in some places it is, but man, keep those bullets. Not a good term. Keep the power. No,
Keep
that's
your
not a
bullets
good
in your
term either.
chamber. I'll say it. It is a good term. Keep your bullets in your chamber, so you can use them for another day here. Because again, when the market's this strong, it doesn't need interest rate cuts here, and the economy's humming along just fine. So, I mean, I think so. And I think that's another catalyst, which is why if the markets really do tank, they probably bounce back because then the Fed just comes in. They say they're data dependent, but they're market dependent here too. They know the wealth effect. And, obviously back in April, they were starting to think a little bit, and then we bounced back quickly. So, if the markets go to tank in the second half, it'll put more pressure on the Fed to actually cut rates. And then they cut rates and the markets go back up anyway. So you just win in all scenarios here right now. The bulls are winning. Winning.
Okay. Let's go to, I mean, I guess I'm the only one that really paid super attention to this, but, I mean, I'm just surprised GME's down. I mean, Ryan Cohn interview, I thought he said a lot
I
of
didn't even know he was
positive.
supposed to be on CNBC.
Yeah, he was on. He was on for like 10, 15 minutes and he talked about, the good shape the company was in. Is anybody else but me surprised that, I guess people don't care about this one? There's other things besides GameStop up there, but, I'm just a little surprised. Hey, I'm saying hi to Robin Steckel. Robin's in the chat today.
Nice.
Longtime fan. Hey, Robin, great to see you. I hope things trying to get back to normal for you. But yeah, okay, moving on. I'm the only one that's surprised that GameStop is not moving. But when you're talking about a hot sector and it gets some news, it just stays hot. MP Materials. Big move, an unbelievable move. You can't, I kind of sounded like Trump there. You didn't think you could go absolutely any higher, right? That was just $50 was
Strong
ridiculous.
gets stronger. So what, they got to deal with Apple?
$500 million. Apple investing in MP Materials for rare earth. I mean, what are they thinking about on Apple? I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, I guess they're putting them. What's 500 million? It's not much, but
it's
wow.
a lot to MP. I mean,
Yes.
This is just it. Like, you get a positive headline. I felt like the headline was way overdone. We got up to $48, $49. Hangs out for 3 days, gets another positive headline. I pull back a little bit, get another deal. And I mean, the bulls are just grab this by the horns here too. You got to start thinking about new all-time highs on this at $60. That's where it got to in 2022. I mean, we've come all the way back here. We've come this far. Why not test it? And I don't think it's today, but I think, you're going to probably pull back a little bit, consolidate for a day or two, get another positive headline, and away we go. Headlines make the charts, folks. I know people don't like to look at headlines. They just want to look at technicals. Headlines is what builds the charts. So when you just headline anticipation and getting deals here left and right. Probably going to get more deals. Probably the story is not over here yet.
MP. Hey, Bradster, you compiled a new list of our rare earth stocks. I don't know
A little bit.
Yeah, let's just
What do you got? Give them to me.
Let's do it.
So we got USAR,
Yep.
UAMY.
Could you go a little bit
TMC.
slower? Wait.
Sure.
I just want to, just give people. I'm not going to call out.
I'm going to write
numbers
them all
or
down
anything.
too.
Yeah. Yep. Like sometimes, like Dennis, like rips off like 7 stocks. I'm like, try and get it. So let's just look at it.
Okay, go.
A little bit over 14. I see a triple top just above 14. Okay.
UAMY.
Yep.
Okay.
TMC, the metals company.
Sure.
Okay.
METC. That is Ramaco Resources.
Got it.
Jay Rice just mentioned NB. We have IPX.
Wow.
IP or IT?
Things, eh?
India Papa X-ray, IPX.
Okay.
And then a couple more. These are kind of like your reaching names a little bit. SBSW, Sandy Bravo, Sandy Whiskey. And the last one is Namib Minerals, NAMM.
Dennis banned that one. No.
Dennis banned that one.
I did. I banned that one.
In STN the other day. Yeah. And then you know what?
Like
and then you know what happened?
Then gave it all back. I'm like, this is crazy.
And then like the next day, that thing was rallying again after we saw
wild.
that. Yeah,
wild.
I think that's your wild one. That's my warning on that one. That's your wild. If you're looking to have a lot of fun in these rarest names, it's a good one.
I mean, that's all the story right now. This is what's driving price. So the rare earth story is hot here too. The nuclear story was the hot thing a month ago. Now it's the rare earth stock. So they just gravitate from story to story to story. Continues here. And that's where, you've got to just be moving ahead of it. Stay ahead of the story. You're going to make some money.
I wanna give a big shout out to Shad Markowitz from the Cortland Economic Report. He's our guest every other week on the Stock Trader Network, and actually BZ Tokyo wants him to come on every week because I'd say 3 or 4 of these stocks that were just mentioned in the Brentster list was something he's been talking about for over a month. So, Shad, if you're listening, great call on those. We'll continue to follow the rare earth stocks. The flavor of the day. All right, so we're not going to get to any earnings, but Dennis needs a shakeup in the market. Dennis needs volatility. Dennis likes when the market goes down and up and down and ripping. And
CPI data.
CPI data.
We will get to JP Morgan earnings here eventually, but this is showing you the type of market that we're in, where you have the major banks report, and we don't even put it in our top 30 minutes of talking because there's so many other cool stories to talk about. So we will get to the earnings here after a little bit later in the show here. So we didn't forget about your JP Morgan and Citigroup and Wells Fargo, but just not the sexy names to talk about here right now. So CPI is always sexy though. So give us some preview here, Mr. Brentster.
Just a little over a minute here. We are expecting the June reading, the month-over-month reading expected up 0.3%. The core CPI reading, which excludes the volatile food and energy spaces, also expected up 0.3% month-over-month. Our 2 year-over-year readings, the base reading expected up 2.6%, and our core reading year-over-year expected up 3%. We also are going to be getting New York Empire State Manufacturing Index for the month of July at 8:30 a.m. Certainly a less notable data point. However, I will mention that this is data for July that we're getting on the manufacturing side of things out of New York. So that is a little bit more of a recent data point. That's a nice little something for that data point. We have about 25 seconds here.
I'm doing everything I can, Dennis, to shake this market up. I went to the 1 minute chart.
Nice.
I went to the 1 minute chart. I'm trying.
Thanks, Joel.
I'm trying to shake this puppy
10
up.
seconds.
Okay.
Here we go. Stand by for news.
Pre-market high, 41.75. Pre-market low, 00.75. Not even gonna care about the
data. Data is lower than expected. Core CPI up 0.2%. That was lighter than expected. The year-over-year core reading up 2.9%. Also lighter than expected. Our estimates there were 0.33% higher and 3% higher. The base readings were in line month over month, up CPI up 0.3%, and the year-over-year base reading was actually up a little more than expected, 2.7%. But stocks ticking a little higher here. Investors are going to be looking at those core readings, which exclude a couple of volatile sectors. Lighter than expected inflation data here on this Tuesday. New York Empire State Manufacturing was sharply better than expected, a reading of 5.5. Economists were expecting a decline in this reading, actually 8.3 reading decline. So we have a couple favorable data points here for bulls.
I will say there's maybe one. I was just going to say there's one bear at 41.75 because that was the pre-market high. It ticked 41.75. It ticked 43. I would be remiss to give you resistance in this market right now, except whatever the daily high is, the current high, the pre-market high, that 63.43. We're in great shape to make a new all-time closing high. That all-time closing high previously was at 24.25. Let's go to the lie detector. I mean, TLT, we call it the lie detector test. I don't even know if that's even true anymore, but there's the 1 minute in the TLT getting a little bit of a bump. So, Brent, that was an excellent breakdown of it. But if I was watching the price action, so it seemed like the early numbers were like most of them were good. Was there? But you said one thing I thought you said was slightly negative or slightly higher.
The base readings were the base reading month over month was in line, and then the year over year reading was a little hotter than expected, but investors should be looking at that core reading, and the core readings were both lighter than expected. And just, a little reminder here, we are going to get our PPI tomorrow at the same time, 8:30 a.m. CPI on the consumer side of things, PPI on the producer side of things. We're expecting similar readings for PPI tomorrow, about 0.2 or 0.3% increase in prices over the month of June.
Okay. Blue, I think Blue's traveling to celebrate one of his wedding anniversaries, so he won't be with us.
Nice.
He'll be with us on Monday. But so far, you're finding sellers above 63.40. The early pre-market high 41.75. We went to 43. Let's see. Let's look at some stocks here. Nvidia. Did Nvidia make a new pre-market high on that?
Yeah, these aren't the stocks to look at when you get the CPI data, because Nvidia and AMD do not care. They're going to do their own thing. They weren't going to sell off on the hot data, maybe a bit. They weren't going to really rally really much. You got to look to your value. It's sensitive. IWM sensitive is probably where you're going to look.
Thank you.
Always, Joel, for CPI data. It's popped a little bit here, but muted response. TLT popped a little bit here, muted response. So again, this market doesn't really care right now about inflation data and the value stocks. It cares about the growth names. So these things get bought for a few seconds by the algos, and every retail trader is like, why am I looking at IWM? I got Nvidia up 5%. I'm going to go look over there. That's where we're at in this market. Let's bring Christian Fromhertz in here, though. He's in the background here, and I want to get his thoughts.
There is Christian Fromhertz, CEO of Tribeca Trade Group. Are you as bored as Dennis with this market going up every single? If I swear, will it hurt our algorithm?
Yeah, don't swear. No swearing.
Or are you still this like even keeled guy that's like, yeah, the market's going up, not everything's going up. You got to be cautious. You don't want to get a rug pull. Where are you?
Good morning, guys. Well, I'm probably somewhat in the middle of that. I mean, I did buy some puts last week in S&P, and that's your surefire indicator that the market's going to go higher. So that fueled the market higher. No, I thought that it makes sense to have a little bit of protection here as we get through July, and we are in the summer. You have to kind of remember what happened last year too, is that we had a bit of a pullback. The seasonality gets a little bit weaker as we get to the second half of July. So I'm in the camp of having a little bit of protection on, but you also just can't ignore what's going on in the market. And to me, it's a very interesting market to trade. It seems like there's a different group that gets hot every couple of days and,
Yep.
moves to the upside. So, to me, that's a great market to be in. They do say that rotation is the lifeblood of a bull market, and that's certainly what we've seen in July so far. And we saw a step back in some of the momentum names. Goldman was talking about that. They had a report out yesterday saying that, which I can't even believe this, but they were saying that momentum stocks got oversold to the downside with their basket of stocks that they track. So,
because we had a 5% sell-off.
Yeah, so
Had a deep correction.
That's a bear market now here, Christian, in this. So you get a 5% sell-off, it's a bear. It's like AMD going down that 10 points when it went from 145 to 135. This is so bad. A carnage out here, the bloodbath. CNBC with the special markets in turmoil. And 3 days later, we're back up to the highs.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so that was eye-catching to me. I get it. There's been a rotation out of some of those names. Software names sold off, cyber names sold off last week, and ultimately, like, these things probably are going to be buying opportunities once kind of. I think it's part of earning season too, taking a little bit of profits in these things. But should we talk about yesterday's movers a little bit?
Well, real quick. I want your commentary on the CPI data.
Sorry, say that again. Sorry, I had Bloomberg.
Your commentary on this, just quick commentary on the CPI data.
Oh, on the CPI data, I mean, I think that Brent, did a really good job talking about the core number coming in. Just a tick under expectations. CPI month over month, it came in 0.3 versus 0.3, so still kind of hanging around. Besant was on Bloomberg this morning talking about, he kind of gave a little bit of a heads up. He says he didn't know what the CPI number was going to be, and then he urged, saying, hey, just be careful about one particular data point month over month, and just to be focused on the overall trend, which he thinks is declining. So I agree with that. I thought that was kind of a little bit of a heads up that maybe the CPI report wasn't going to be as strong or muted as thought. So I think he was spot on with that, and gave a little bit of a heads up this morning.
Okay. And so, all right. So talk about what caught your attention yesterday. So you put it on the Christian Fromhertz radar. You're following through on it today. Where we going? Go ahead, throw your charts up there. We'll throw them up there for you. We're going to add them to the stage. Try and add them to the stage. I'm going to remove mine.
I'll wait for you to do that.
There we go.
So going back to last Friday, we started to see some of the nuclear names all set up. CCJ, which I'm long this, but you started to see the turn, and what I would say too is, like, you're probably saying, what's he talking about? Where, in terms of like the trend, so just a little bit of sideways action after a big move. And I think, some of the strongest names just don't pull back that much. So even with the overall market, and I would put the nuclear names in the category of momentum, they really didn't come down too much. So it tells me that there was some strength going on, and I'm looking for these things. I'm looking for CCJ to make new highs. I think there was I like this SMR, which had a huge day yesterday. And again, it kind of revealed itself last week, a little bit of a dip, but never really broke support. So SMR is another nuclear name. Oklo had a big day yesterday, and I just think that these things are going to continue higher. And it's not just me. We had the energy secretary come out yesterday, and I don't know how you can argue with this. And I know Dennis has said that this is not, you don't have to be like super smart in this market. They're telling you. Secretary Chris Wright says on Twitter yesterday, let's talk nuclear energy. The energy dense always on energy source that we've smothered for decades with regulatory red tape. Under the Trump administration, you're going to truly see the launch of the nuclear renaissance. Is this something that you want to get in front of and say, "Oh my God, like these names aren't going to be good for the going future"? He also made a statement about coal too. He also said, President Trump has transformed the American energy landscape. You're going to see a lot more big, beautiful, clean oil. So we could talk a little bit about that group as well, because it hasn't really moved that much. But I think that you've got to stay with some of these areas of the market and buy dips when they occur, just like you got here with Oklo. Nice kind of check back here. Another name, I know Spinner's been all over this name. He keeps telling me, watch LEU. That's been another strong name. So again, it's not just one name in the group. There's a whole bunch of names going up. As you guys also talked about rare earths, I think that's going to be something to kind of to continue as well. But these are the things to me that is very exciting, and you're getting hints. You're getting hints from the administration about where they want to be. One final thing that I'll say about this too is, you just heard from Meta yesterday announcing all these investments into AI. So like, even if you're saying like, okay, maybe the AI trade is getting, a little bit mature, or, we're maybe not in the early innings anymore of AI, but you just had an announcement from Meta saying that they're that they're ramping up all this expenditures, getting themselves further entrenched in AI. And this AI stuff takes a huge amount of energy. Again, you don't have to like compute the numbers, but that we've got several things going on. We just had like floods go on in New Jersey yesterday. So to me, there's just going to be an ever need for energy from pulling from multiple areas of this market, and that's why they're tapping into nuclear, nat gas products, and perhaps even coal.
Let's just talk this momentum trade all together. I just want to dig down more into Christian Fromhertz, strategies here, because I know you always stick with all the Momo stuff. Do you just have scanners? Like, how do you always find, are you listening to the story and then just going into those charts? Do you have scanners looking for stocks making new 52-week highs? Like, talk about, how you're always in all the most, stuff that's always moving higher.
Yeah, I mean, it's really trend too. I mean, momentum is great. Like once you're in a trade and you're noticing that the trend is strong, and obviously you want momentum to kind of come into the stocks that you're in. We want our stocks to go up, but for me, it's really trend. So it's just noticing, what areas are doing well, in a given day. I also look at the new high list. I look at the 4-week new high list. I look at the 52-week new high list, and you can't miss things, right? If you're looking at that on every couple of days, looking at the groups that are making 4-week new highs. Also, looking at names that have strong earnings reactions too, but it'll just hit you in the face when you're looking at 4-week new highs and you see, okay, there's 3 different names in this group, or 4, the semis, or so that's a very easy way to find it. It's not that hard to just go through, and then keeping a watch list of names, and kind of doing your homework when the market's closed. I had going into this week, I had 4 nuclear names on my watch list going into the week, because they were the ones that were showing such strength on Friday, when the market was a little bit weak going into the weekend. So relative strength is a big thing for me, and just listening to what the market's telling you. That's basically it. As long as you're doing that homework and saying, okay, this market's weak today, but these stocks are standing out today. They're not going down. And just like I was talking about with that nuclear group, I mean, CCJ was not going down with the rest of the momentum stock. Hey, all the momentum stocks are getting sold off, but these stocks aren't in that group.
How do you stay in these trades? That's the second question, because I'm pretty good at identifying them. I have too much scalper blood, and I end up getting out of these trades often too soon. How do you stay with it? It's just a matter of when trend breaks, I get the hell out of here. But then, you get some, moments in time, like even that CCJ chart where, well, it did kind of blip below, your 1 moving average that you got there,
Mm-hmm.
So is that and that would be selling the very bottom here. So how do you stick with them, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect science. I mean, I generally like to take take 2 targets in a trade, like in the very beginning of the trade. And then I like to try to get the last 50% really where I'm making the bulk of my money. And then I'll trim one more time, and it's usually the last 25 or 30% of the trade that I'm letting run. And from there, it's a little bit of blocking and tackling. It is having a trailing stop, not an actual hard stop, but I have an alert to the downside. One of the questions that I get all the time from traders is like, once a name breaks out to new highs, like to me, that's the best thing that can happen because there's no resistance. But I always get traders ask me, well, like, what's your price target? Where are you looking for the stock to go? And I'm like, I'm looking for it to make more and more new highs and to break out further and further. Right? That's where I've learned to kind of make a lot of money in this market, is just kind of, stepping, taking your foot off the gas in terms of trying to, like, guess where the thing is going to go. Keep managing your trailing stop and say, okay, well, what is it? Where are you comfortable with the stock pulling back? As long as you get that in your mind to say, like, okay, I'm not trying to time the tippy top. Let's see how far it's going to run. And if it changes, if the trend changes, then I'm going to have to sell it. And the understanding is that you're not going to get the tippy top, right? So if a stock runs, 5% and then pulls back, okay, that's not great. But if the stock runs 20, 25%, as we've seen some of these names run, the Palantir and the Hood, right? My job is not to say, okay, this is ridiculous and these shouldn't go up anymore. It's just to kind of try to hang on for the ride, and then understand, like, if the stock, let's say the stock does something great and goes up 25, 50%, understanding that you're not going to get the last 3 or 5% because you're going to be selling. Your trailing stop is going to be working for you, because ultimately a lot of these things do break trend at some point. You just can't predict when that's going to happen.
Christian, where does solar fit in? Is it just too messy? I know you've taken a couple stabs here, but that is energy. I guess it's bad because it's clean energy. I know Dennis is taking a position, and for solar, I've been looking at it. What where does solar fit into this whole energy picture?
Yeah, and that's ultimately too how I use technicals. Like, I use technicals as a roadmap to say, hey, I've got ideas. Let me try an idea here, as long as the technicals support it and is giving me a signal. For the overall solar ETF, yes, I've been watching this group closely. I've been participating here and there. 3861 for the overall solar ETF is the level that I'm watching. Notice how it's just hesitating here right at my level, which tells me we've got a good system in place. That's your resistance. And I'll wait to see what happens here, because if it does break into this value area for the year, I think there's good upside. I've tried a couple different names. I've found some success with Canadian Solar. This name has done very well. Here's the weekly chart. It did take a step back once Trump announced further tariffs and solar, but I kind of think it might be a buying opportunity. So this is doing something a little bit different than that chart that I just showed you. It did break into that value area and has turned the corner. So ultimately, I would love to see this rally all the way up to 1853. That's my ultimate price. So again, for things that are not at 52-week highs, I do have price targets. The things that have overhead resistance, overhead supply, I absolutely do have a price target. So these are a little bit more harder trades. And hence you'll see some backing and filling. Another one that I've been watching is SEDG. I believe it did get a downgrade this morning, but I kind of like the bull flag that's happening here. So I'm waiting to see if this breaks and starts to take the next step higher, because I do think that they're going to need solar, and I think that's going to be part of the picture of drawing all this energy that they need for AI and other projects too. So definitely solar is something that I'm watching too, as a more of a contrarian play.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe Fabe makes a good comment. Solar won't get off the ground during the president administration. That's
True,
one
but
thing that's kind of keeping me out of it. And then,
That's 3.5 years. I mean, that's a long time to wait too. The
true,
administration's
but
not in love with it, but at a certain point, I mean, yeah, go ahead, Christian.
I would also add, it didn't go crazy with the Democratic president either. So some of these things, some of these narratives that people have in their head, like, oh my God, well, this group isn't going to do well because of this administration. Like, it didn't go off to, flying because you had a Democratic president either. So some of these things I think have other reasons to go. I get that this new bill that was passed is not positive for solar. There was a note out by Mizuho. They said that they liked Sunrun a little bit out of this. I don't know if I'm gonna. The chart for Sunrun looks okay, but yeah, I mean, I just think that there's the themes out there that we're going to need more and more power, and drawing from all different types of resources will outweigh the political narratives.
So not investment advice, but if someone wanted to make like a long-term investment in solar, I mean, First Solar is so sexy because it moves, man. It's a mover and it's the leader. And it just seems to, when it goes, and then every once in a while, the analysts get on it. Do you think that little bit, I see it pulling back to a moving average for like a long-term investment? Should I just, look at the tan and say, hey, maybe one day, I mean, because it's been strong. I mean, there's no doubt that this thing has had moves up, consolidation, another move up, consolidation. What would be the best way to get long-term exposure to the solar sector?
Well, I mean, like I said, just kind of going through and looking which ones are setting up. Like, even though
Okay.
you want to be, even though you want to have a long-term trade in something, that doesn't mean to ignore the technicals. Like, I'm still going to make sure that the technicals and my system is telling me that this is supportive of my money and supportive of a long-term event. I really don't try to stay rigid in terms of saying, oh my God, I'm in this for the long term, so it's okay with what it does in the short term. No, I want to see something begin to happen now. So, that's the level that I'm watching in the solar ETF. It hasn't triggered for that. But, again, I run like a longer term I don't want to say longer term, but I run a little bit of a longer term portfolio, and I won't buy these things until the technicals are supportive of them. I don't want to sit in something for 2 years that's not going to work and use the excuse that it's a long term investment for me.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
once things start to turn up, even from low levels, is where I want to get involved. If it's just because I have an idea, I've got to have the technical support it for me.
Okay, great information coming from Christian Fromhertz, Tribeca Trade Group. He'll be following through on this discussion, his setups at 2 p.m. in the STN room. Technical fundamental analysis for Christian Fromhertz, always appreciated.
Thanks, guys. Have a great
Christian.
day.
Okay, do we really care about earnings, Dennis?
We got to do them. But yeah, we don't really care. Don't care about bank earnings. We care about tech earnings. Like Netflix later this week's going to be interesting. Taiwan Semiconductor later this week's going to be interesting. Even ASML on Wednesday is probably going to be interesting. But when you go and you look here, JP Morgan, all right, if we have to cover it, we'll cover it here. So I'll give
That's
you
a
the
big
earnings.
beat. That's a big beat,
That's a
man.
huge
Bye.
beat. They only rock and roll, man. That's a huge beat. But the bank story is always the same. This is this broken record of broken records. JP Morgan 496 versus 448, 45.68 billion versus 44.16 billion. Nice beat on the top, nice beat on the bottom. Stock pops, and then the predictable drop afterwards because nobody cares about banks. I mean, this has just been the story for banks forever. That they get the good pop on the good earnings and then they leak it back. I mean, I feel like we have said this for like 5 years. So like 20 quarters of JP Morgan and Wells Fargo and Citi, where they pop up on their results and then everybody's like, banks, I'm not interested in banks right now. And then they just go back. And it's not that the stocks have done bad. It's just they always are predictable on earnings. They just don't hold earnings gains. And that's what we're seeing here today in JP Morgan.
Boom. You had a pop up to 295. Wow. Is that near all-time high here? Interesting. Yeah. It's 296.40. Boom. I'm gonna I've had this one for a while. Bought it. When was that financial crisis we had with the regional banks? Was that
you own JP Morgan?
I
now
told
I'm mad.
You that.
Now
Don't
I'm
be
mad.
You
wouldn't let me buy it at $30
when
you probably bought it at $30, you sucker.
No, I
did
did
you,
not.
Billy? Did you buy
No,
back
I
at
didn't.
$31 when you said, Denny, you're going to get it at 29? Hold out for the last $2. That's 270. Now, where did you buy JP Morgan?
I could tell you exactly where I bought JP Morgan.
You better not say under like $40.
No. It was, remember when all the banks were going under?
Yeah, the
Um,
financial crisis. That's when the
no,
stock
no,
was
no, no, no,
$40.
not that one. No, the
Not that one.
most recent.
Not you.
Remember when all the regional banks puked?
Oh yeah, 3 years ago.
And
The regional
Schwab went
bank
to,
crisis.
it wasn't 3 years ago, it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it
Well,
went
I'm
it
old.
went
I
to
lose track of years.
123.11. I made a big commitment. One I got smoked on. I can't remember which one. What was it? There's one I got
We had
smoked.
CMA. You bought a bunch of them.
Yeah.
CMA was
Yeah, I
okay,
bought
but that came back.
CMA. I bought CMA in the
One of them
30s.
went under on you, didn't it?
Yeah, and
Which
I
one
bought it.
went
I can
under?
remember that one. I bought it at 12 and it went to like 36 the next day. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is a long-term trade.
That's what I always
I
found as
can't get
well.
out. And then like it just like, okay, this is like going under. And then like one day there was news and it opened at 12. It was at 12 and opened at 8. And I'm like, I can't take this anymore. And then what was it? Help me out. Was it FRP?
There was like, man, are we getting older? We can't remember.
Did it
these
have a
crazy
California
news.
in it or
There was
so?
like
It was
5 of them that went under, but it was like with the big one that went under. FRC. FRC.
FRC.
Yeah, chat's all over it.
Yeah. I got smoked on that, but I was able to get Coal America in the 30s.
Yeah.
And I actually puked a small part of the position right near the low. I couldn't take it when it came back down there 2 months later. But I think JP Morgan 132, 133, something like that. But
All right.
don't be too mad. But if it breaks 280, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be in it, but we'll see at this point. But
all right. The other banks here reported. Wells Fargo also reported here. $1.60 versus $1.40, 20.82 versus 20.78 billion. That's a beat in the top. That's a beat in the bottom. Did the stock have the pop and the drop too? Because I see the drop. Did it pop, or they didn't even bother popping it?
No. But you know what I love about this stock is that remember that one day, what was the news? There was some, like, they got off the hook on something. What was it? It was one day and it popped. It went from 76 to 85. Remember that? What day was that?
Oh yeah. What did they do? And I was like, this is one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen in my 25-year trading career. It was like it was June
they were
4th. Allowed to,
yeah. I think it was June 4th. Let me see.
It was something with that they were, allowed to like return capital or something, or I don't know. They got out of the dollar, like they got out of something anyways. Settled something.
It was announced that it's no longer subject to asset growth restrictions that were imposed in 2018. And that was on June 4th. So this was the bar right here. The high of the regular session was 78.80. It traded at $85.
I know.
In the pre-market on that day.
Yeah. And after hours, it was 85. Yeah. I shorted 82. And then somebody in the S10 room was like, it just traded 85, like before, like right before. And it traded 85 so fast I didn't even see it. I was like, did it? It's like, oh my gosh, it did. I thought it was stupid at 82. At 85 was really stupid. And then it came in and I covered like 79. It was an awesome trade. And then it went like right back down to 75 the next morning. I gave it all back. And I was like, wow, that is one of the dumbest moves ever.
Okay.
Wells Fargo. It's not some speculative little penny stock. Such a move. Some crazy moves. Sometimes some crazy moves are fades. People asking the TTD. So I talked about it before too. It's a big move. They move up on the S&P ads. They always do, but they usually do eventually start to leak it. So I think there will be an opportunity if they trade that. Sometimes you got to wait a day though, but keep an eye on it. The other bank we didn't cover Citigroup, so we'll do it. Citigroup did report here the earnings 1.96 versus 163. The earnings all look identical. But you know what the difference is? That JP Morgan reported first, and they popped it and dropped it. And then Wells Fargo reported second, and they just dropped it. So then the bar's lower for Citi. So Citi's just smart by reporting at 8 a.m. because it's rallying, and Citi's up $2 on it. So totally the bar. The JP Morgan drops the bar, Wells Fargo. And not that the earnings were bad. They just, because they got hit, they're like, oh, well, Citigroup, maybe they're going to, and then it rallies up. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's rallying now, boy. I like to keep. I mean, it's traded pretty good volume. I keep an eye on that pre-market high. It's taking out the all-time high at 88.83. Man, let's see if this thing opens like at 90 and goes 90 and a quarter, and then comes back down to 90. That's the only setup I'd be looking at. But this thing is just chugging, trying to get back to that all-time high. Wink, wink. Dennis, we got to talk negative, and they're picking on you, Dennis. Oscar Health, and just real quick.
Oh yeah, they downgrade my stock every day.
Yeah.
So I did buy Oscar, and I've been talking about this 14 level in the STN room, which it found support right at the 14.
I like it.
I feel like it's a story. It's a retail darling that eventually is going to come back, is what I think. There was a story here. It got hit on the UNH. It got hit. Now it's got 3 downgrades in a row. They just downgrade every day. But yesterday's downgrade was shrugged off, and stock actually reversed and ended up closing near the highs. So what do? UBS comes in today on Oscar Health, and they downgraded too. They're just trying to knock this thing down. Downgrade to sell. Get the hell out, they tell me. Well, that's what the guy told me yesterday too, and the stock actually rallied at the end of the day. So fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I think they shrug off the downgrade here again. Although, it is only down to 1% on, and is to a sell rating. Price target 11. So I think in the low 14s, a good support here.
I talked to Lisa about it, and she never has come across it as a insurance provider. And then she digged into it a little bit more, and it's not offered in Michigan. So it's a regional basis. She says, that the concept is there. Like, she likes the concept of it, but it's just not super, so maybe like when you hear that and you could do some more research, I could do more research to see where it's offered. Maybe if they start expanding areas that they can go into, then they, they come out and say, Oscar Health is expanding into Michigan. And 10 other states.
Because Joel's all Michigan. So they don't offer in Michigan. He ain't interested. You invest in Michigan companies.
What about the Tigers' 3-game losing streak going into the All-Star break? Okay, we haven't talked sports in a while.
We lose all our listeners. Did you notice in the last 2 weeks we haven't mentioned sports at all? It's probably because we're in the middle of just baseball season, and you get into July, and you got baseball and the 162-game season, which you go on a 10-game losing streak and still can make the playoffs. A little more meaningless here. You're going on a 10-game losing streak in any other sport, and your season's over.
Okay. All right. We're going to
sports. They all leave. But we're at the end. So what we could do is at 9 a.m. start talking sports, because everybody's leaving anyways. Unless they're going to the STN room.
Okay. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us on PreMarket